Oh boy. Hi, everyone. We're waiting. We'll start around 6:30 uh, for the college planning night for juniors. Again, welcome if you're joining us for the college planning night for juniors. We'll get started at just about 6:30. So welcome to our college planning night for juniors here at Strongsville High School. My name is Tara Brusky. I'm one of the school counselors here. I have last names MU through SC. So keep in mind while I'm running this meeting, I am just one of the 5 counselors. Everybody has this knowledge. Everybody can be a resource for you. So your assigned counselor will do a great job guiding your student one-on-one if needed. So we'll go through the presentation, and we have a few places where people can ask questions via QR code. And as I was waiting to start this, I already saw a typo. So please forgive me on that. But I'm going to present my screen here, and we will start. So I see here that I have class of 2021. So I'm sorry, you are the class of 2022. Just a refresher, I know that Dr. Ryba had also asked for parents to kind of opt in to text messages. So as we too in guidance will sometimes send a text message. So you can text this number and text yes. And I'll put that back up on the screen at the end of the presentation as well. So what are we going to cover today? Here's our agenda. A lot of this, we're going to talk about how to use Naviance or Family Connection to guide in your college search. You'll notice there's a QR scanner there. If you think of questions, this will pop up throughout the presentation. And you simply just need to open your camera on your cell phone, and it'll start to scan that. And it'll say, would you like to open forms? And you say yes. So we can answer any questions that you might have. We'll talk about what colleges are looking for, what scholarships and financial aid you might be able to access, and a little bit of NCAA. So I must say this is quite weird talking to a screen. So I hope this goes well for the rest of you. So Naviance is a tool that you can use to do research, to identify your students or your own abilities or interests or personalities and what kind of careers that match that, and also what kind of majors you have, and also which universities have those majors. So it will also help you start to create that list. So, you know, when I was going to college, my mom, we wrote a list out. Here, students can actually favorite colleges, and you can have your list in Naviance, which is really helpful also because we can send students information specific to schools based on what they've added to their Naviance profile. So these next 2 slides are really just going to be for you when you go back. So when you decide to log into Naviance, how you're going to do that. So we will send the slide presentation out, and also this will be recorded, so you can watch it again, but we can also send the slides out so that you can click the links. So the first thing I'm going to do is demonstrate how your child can use Naviance to find a career or a major. So you'll notice the arrows here are supposed to be clues for when you want to go back into this at another time. So I've got my Naviance screen open here. I'm going to demo as me. Demo Brusky, that's me. It's a great first name. So this is what the screen looks like when your student logs in. And you can, as that other slide said, you can go to About Me and then click on My Assessments. And there's lots of assessments here. We generally try to get our ninth graders to do the Do What You Are, which is a personality profile. And I believe they do MI Advantage in 8th grade. Your juniors probably did that. There's a Strengths Explorer, which many students do in 10th grade. This year, we were targeting our 11th graders to do the Career Interest Profiler. So Demo Brusky has already done this. So this is what it'll look like if your child has already done this. I already have results here that I can go through. So like I said, if your child is in government or AP government here at the high school this year, this was an assignment that they were supposed to do. And so hopefully they did. If not, they can go ahead and do it now. So it'll show, interests. So I tried to take this with my child in mind. And she is 15, and her results came out much like mine would. But it talks about the different, interest categories. So this person is very social, not very enterprising, not someone whose interests. So it's not necessarily what they would be good at, but what they would be interested in. So this person would not be really interested in running a business or sales. So my example is I was a first and math teacher here at Strongsville for about 10 years. And now this is my 10th or 11th year in the counseling department. But I love math, love numbers, and I probably would have been really good at accounting, but I wouldn't have liked it. So there's kind of a difference there where we like to hopefully find something we're good at and something that interests us. So you'll notice what I did there is I clicked on View Matching Careers. So Naviance is just a series of many links. So some things are going to come up. Notice these are some preparation. So you might have a student that is like, no way, I'm not going to college, don't want to do it. So the some preparation, these might be 2-year degrees or a certificate that they could get through Tri-C, something like that. Medium preparation is also also a 2-year, probably kind of degree. Considerable preparation ends up being more somewhere between a bachelor's and an associate's degree. And then extensive preparation. These are post-secondary teachers. So we're looking at probably, some sort of 4, 5, 6-year degree. So what you can do is, click on anything in here. So let's say this person would be great at, I don't know, what's an informatic nurse specialist? Well, I don't know, but I can click on this link and learn about it. So what's great about this is it gives you a job description. What does someone in this career do? What are other related occupations? knowledge and skills. What do I have to be good at to do this job? What kind of skills do I need to learn? And what are the most important abilities? I can click on what does this person do on a regular basis? And one of our favorite things, wages. So this is the wages in Ohio. But ding, ding, we can click on show more. And here's all of the wage for all of the US. Okay, so obviously money's not everything, but I'm a country music fan. I don't know if anybody else is. And one of my favorite songs by Chris Jansen talks about how money can't buy you happiness, but can buy me a boat and a truck to pull it. So obviously we don't want our students to always focus on money, but obviously we want them to be in a good position to make money and have a career. So again, we can click on anything here. Let's say a respiratory therapist. Again, your student could see what that job is like, what tasks there are, what the wages are. If I go back to overview, I can scroll down to related occupations and related majors. So if I click on a related major, it will now take me to what colleges have that major. So it goes on forever and ever and ever. So if I go back, let's say I don't like any of the careers that it gives me here, I can go to About Me, go to my assessments, and the Do What You Are is a personality profile. So you could go back and see if there's any results here. I didn't do this one, but I could. If I had already done it, the results would be. So you can explore that with your students who don't have much of an idea. Okay, so let's go back to my presentation. So this is where we've talked about. So I'm checking to make sure I have no feedback here in my email. So this would be the time if you have any questions so far. You can scan this with your phone and make sure I'm still presenting. This is a little odd for me. But you could scan this with your phone and fill out the form, enter some questions. And I'm going to go on. And we'll give you another chance to scan and submit questions as well. So what school fits your student? So again, a great thing that you can do on Naviance. What I know is that many of my friends who weren't happy at college were based on setting. So some of them it was way too big of a school for them. It was not the right place. So it was in a rural, like Ohio Northern University. Great place if you like small, but some students feel like there's nothing to do there. And so that's good, not good or bad, just based on the student. So for many students, they are, adamant, students and parents, that the student should go to Ohio State University. It is huge. So it's not always the best place for students. So you can kind of have some of these things in mind, and of course, go visit would be a great idea. So we can look at, what fits my student. So I can actually, if I go home here, I want to search colleges. I'm going to find my fit. So I go to colleges, find my fit, and I'm going to do super match. Maybe. There we go. Okay. So there's lots of criteria here that I can check. It's giving me lots of information here. So I can customize the location. I can say, which area I want to be in. I can search by distance. So we could say where I want to be in the Midwest. I feel like it gives you more options here. So once I click Midwest, I can keep these options, or I can, X out the ones that maybe are too far away. Okay, so I've selected one criteria, and I have 271 institutions that match that. It's a must-have. They must be in one of those states. Academics, so you can, narrow it down by a degree that you want to do. So maybe you're looking to get a bachelor's degree, and you can start typing. Maybe I want to go into architecture. What's cool here is you start to see things you didn't even know, like architectural engineering, technology. It's kind of cool. Architectural engineering. We can do just architectural drafting. I don't know if just architecture is an option. Re-architecture. So anyway, you can just choose one here. If I click out of this, now I'm down to 17 institutions. And so I can look at where the matches are and what might work. So we've got Miami, and you can sort by private or public. Notice these tell you what kind of the setting is, whether it's private, where they fit. I would think Kent State's on here, although I don't see it yet. Kent State has an amazing architecture program. Many of the leading architecture firms in the nation are head up by our Kent State grads. So what's cool about this is now it's just a whole bunch of links. So I can click on, what would it be like to go to the University of Illinois at Chicago? And I can learn about that university. And so it's taking some time to load. There we go. So I can see what it's like to go there, what the admissions are like. It's competitive, rolling admission, what our application history is at our school. And then here's one cool thing. It's called a scattergram. Not a lot of people have applied, but it tells you that the University of Illinois of Chicago, of Strongsville High School students that have applied, 2 of them got in, tells you what their ACT and what their GPA is. So it's kind of an interesting thing. If I was a real student, then, and I'll show you an example of this, I would pop up on here in comparison to the people who have applied. But what I can also do is I can, psychedelic. What I can do is up here, I can heart this college. So I'm putting it into my list of colleges I'm thinking about. And we'll come back to why, besides it just being on the list for you to go back and look at, we can talk about how that is also helpful for the high school, the guidance department, to communicate with you or your child about opportunities related to that college. So again, I've added it to the list of colleges I'm thinking about. All right. I, even at this point, I can still limit it to cost, institutional characteristics. Um, so this is how big it is. You know, do I want it to be very large? Do I want it to be public, private? At this point in your child's high school career, it would not limit them to only public schools. Private schools actually have a lot more money in their endowment funds to give. So I wouldn't rule them out at this point. When you get into senior year, they could apply to some publics, to some privates, see how the money shakes out, and make that decision there. So I wouldn't rule out a private school just solely on the fact that you think it's going to cost too much. Okay, so let's go back to my presentation here. Um, Again, we want school students to be realistic about what schools fit them. So that's where Naviance can be helpful. And we'll talk more about that as well. So here it is. Here's what I was talking about. Here's a scattergram. It looks a little different than maybe the screen you see, but you'll see who has applied and who has gotten in. So maybe I'll give you a better example of that. But this is, I think, was an example of Miami, University of Ohio, where it showed. So in this one, this circle was the applicant. And these were all the other people that applied. So you could actually see where the student fit. And actually the student got in. So I was a little surprised, but she did a lot of work behind the scenes. She wrote essays. She was pretty aggressive and did get in. It doesn't always work. So of course, when I was advising the student, I said to her, you know, that's fine if you apply to Miami, but please apply to some other places. And that was, she had some other extenuating circumstances as well. But we're always going to guide a student to apply to some safer schools as well, within Ohio or wherever they plan to go. So how can you help pick your colleges? So visiting colleges obviously is a great idea. However, not everyone is comfortable with that at this point. And so we've compiled a list here, if you click on this, of the public universities in Ohio is one tab. So are they allowing in-person visits or just virtual visits? Then across the bottom, you'll see we have Ohio private schools and we have out-of-state schools. So of course, many students feel comfortable, many do not, but it is a virtual visit is a great option, even if perhaps it's too far away. Of course, I would hope that a student can step foot on a campus before they make a final decision. Students should have until May 1st of their senior year to make a final commitment to a college. Now, that doesn't mean they might say, hey, if you send your deposit by this date of, you know, January 15th, you'll have priority housing. That could be true. But they cannot require you to commit or send a deposit to them until May 1st. At least in Ohio, I think that's pretty much national. So of course, you know, visiting a school is important to decide. You know, I think those of us who went to college know what it was like to kind of walk on the campus and see if it fit for us, right? So an important thing to do, I think. The other thing is that students can meet with the college rep here at the high school. Well, in previous years, they have met with the representative here at the high school. This year, most visits are virtual, meaning that the representative from the college runs a Zoom call. Now, if they're running this Zoom call during the school day when a student's at school, we do provide a location for the student to come down and join that meeting if they're in school that day. If not, they can join from wherever they are. So this is one of the great things about if you like a college, if you put it in the list of things, colleges that you're thinking about, when a college is coming, a student will get an email. And it'll appear to come directly from their counselor. It's really an automated thing, but it's a really good idea. So if you go to the student's home screen, they kind of hide it here at the bottom, but here we have the VMI, the Virginia Military Institute, is visiting tomorrow. How appropriate on Veterans Day. So more of these will pop up. There were more actually at the beginning of the year, but I can view more information here and I would hit register. Okay, but if there is a student that had VMI in their list of colleges that they're thinking about, they got an automated email about signing up for this. So that's where it's helpful for them to match and, like the schools and make that list for on Naviance as well. It helps us communicate with them. Let's see. I think that's good for that page. So what does a school look for in a student? So obviously they're looking for the whole package. We have here the first statement, academics and SAT, ACT scores. So I have a whole slide dedicated to the SAT, ACT scores. In academics, we're looking for what has a student taken and have they taken as much as rigorous as they can. So we're not saying, are they taking the most rigorous classes, studying all night and not doing anything else? No. Are they taking rigorous courses that meet their ability so that they can continue to grow? Do they do extracurricular activities? Will they be a positive addition to our campus environment? So, what do they do outside of school? This could even be a job, or they babysit their cousins, or they have lots of younger siblings and they're babysitting. All of those things are appropriate. Some schools require a personal statement or essay, but not all. And very prestigious universities may require a student interview. So like I said, not every school requires an essay. Kent State, Bowling Green, Toledo, not all of those do require an essay. So here's our academics. So in addition to the requirements, right? So there's 4 years of math that students need to graduate, 4 years of English that students need to graduate. If a student plans to go to college, they should plan to take 4 credits of science. We have many different options here at the high school. We had, AP Environmental Science, AP Physics, AP Biology, Astronomy, Botany, Zoology, and we have a lot of options here. So, a science class shows that the student's continuing to grow. And science is one of those that shows students are thinking critically, in addition to math, of course. It's recommended that students take 2 to 3 years of a world language. It's not required to take a world language to graduate in Ohio, but it is recommended. There are exceptions to this. So if you have a student who is very into music and knows that they want to major in engineering, they may be able to get away without taking a world language. Now, if they don't take a world language because they took all musics and all woods classes, perhaps not. That's something that they can look into. We say 2 to 3 years of a world language. You're more um, difficult schools to get into. Ohio State, Miami, many times they'll say two, but you really need the third to remain competitive. And of course, if you're looking at even a higher tier school, Case Western, for example, you need the AP. You need rigorous courses in your schedules. So again, it should be appropriate workload and difficulty. Okay. And then diverse academic experiences. So even though I don't love art, you should still take art, right? So expand your horizons. All right, so here, this is another time to ask questions. I'm going to stop presenting my screen here and see if we have any questions that have been submitted. Not yet. So at this point, I'll put that back up. And if you have questions, scan our QR code and submit any questions you might have at this point. All right. So information about SAT and ACT. So again, this is difficult because I'm trying to, what's typical and what's COVID pandemic year. So normally we would recommend students would take both tests at least once. Many of our students will only take the ACT. Which is fine if you're looking for a more prestigious university on the East Coast. You tend to do SAT there. Some students just prefer one setup more than the other. And so they'll take each test once and then they'll decide which one they like better, and maybe they'll prepare and take one of the tests again to try to get a higher score. And so we'll talk about how you can prepare more for this. When you register, if you want the high school to have the results, you need to make sure that you choose that when you register. Typically, when you register for this, which we'll have on the next slide, you can choose to have your score report sent to 4 schools right off the bat, free of charge. So some students don't like to do this at first. They feel like they need to wait and see what the score is. Colleges pretty much will disregard any test that doesn't meet their standard. They will take the highest test that you send them. So there's no real downfall in sending those scores from the beginning. So when students go to apply to college, the test score, if it's on our transcript, they'll see that. However, some schools do not view that as an official score. They require it to come directly from SAT and ACT. So if you add those when you register for the class, then you don't have to go back later and request them, which is typically, I think now it's $13 a test. So for example, in Ohio, there are a few schools that require it come directly from the testing agency. Miami, Cincinnati, Dayton goes back and forth, and Ohio State. So although I do love Dayton, I'm a flyer. Class of 2000, great vibes. Pandemic ruined our chances at Final Four, maybe a championship this year for basketball. So it was a little upsetting. So it's a little bit on SAT and ACT. So you may have heard that for the class of 2021, when they're applying to colleges, 99% of colleges, I'm sure there's somebody out there, have been test optional. So for some students, this has been a great break for them. They don't test well, and perhaps after they took the March test, they had planned to retake it. But things got canceled. Testing centers were hard to find. And some people just don't feel comfortable going to a testing center. We are typically a testing center here at Strongsville, but we delayed that a little bit. So that's why they've been test optional. So I have reached out to some schools here in Ohio, both public and private. And they said that if students that can safely take a test should. So if your student is going to work and they're going to hang out with friends and they're right, so you feel comfortable amid the pandemic doing such things, you should have them test. However, if you have someone that's immunocompromised or you just don't feel comfortable with that, they don't need to test. There are certain programs. So for example, in Cincinnati, they're test optional for the class of 2021 and the class of 2022. And I copied this directly from the representative's email back to me. But there's always exceptions. So Cincinnati, the exceptions here are nursing, early childhood education, dual med program, or honors program. For example, Toledo, I know their health professions. So people who want to apply to the pharmacy school or pre-med or anything like that at Toledo has to submit a test score this year as well. They're a good choice because they partner with the Medical College of Ohio for many things. And so while you might have the opportunity to be a test optional, you might not. Dayton was the only other one that reached out with a definite. The definite was that their decision to be test optional is permanent. So, but if that's the only place you're applying, great. If not, we don't know. So the other schools I reached out to were, Cleveland State, Baldwin-Wallace, Mount Union, University of Toledo, Kent State, Bowling Green, and they all were mixed. There has been no decision yet. So how do I take a test? So students have to register and pay for the test in most instances. So these are private companies. I can't register your child. I cannot see your child's registration. You and your student need to do it. I would recommend that you have your student either do it themselves or do it with you. One exception is that all juniors will take the ACT on March 9th. So March 9th of 2021, students do not need to register for the March 9th test. We will register. Anybody who is enrolled as a junior this year will take that test. So that's a Tuesday, I think, March 9th. And so those students will be here testing. It's actually a pretty good opportunity, I think, to be testing in the school where you normally take your classes, because, they say if you take a test or you learn, if the environment is similar, you do better. So how can you prepare for the ACT? Of course, there are practice books. The prep course, there's usually a prep course offered here at the high school. There was one this past October as well. That February date, I do not know if that is correct or not, but watch for updates from the weekly update that Mr. Wingler sends out. They should be in there. The other thing is that ACT's website itself has an academy. So I think that the prep class here at the high school is a really great deal. It's $100. Some programs that you pay for could be $250, $500, which is a lot. And my personal opinion is that a student should sit for a test first, and then I think they'll get more out of that prep class. I think once they know what the test looks like, once they know what to expect, they will get more out of the class. However, ACT Academy is a great way it's on the ACT website. If your student has already taken the ACT, it will use that data to generate review for them. If they have not, they'll go send them through a series of questions and then kind of try to determine what they need to practice. So I like that. SAT is similar. They have practice tests on their website. For students who take the PSAT, they'll get customized test prep based on how they did. The PSAT normally is given in October. However, our district had elected to move this to a January test date. So I believe it is January 28th. And information on signing up for that will come hopefully in the next, I don't know, I guess I would say 3-4 weeks from Ms. Davidson. But that's a great way to review as well. So college applications are kind of the least of our worries right now. It's, it's trying to do some research, see where I should go from here. College applications open August 1st. Most colleges use something called the Common App, but some have options, meaning that you don't have to always do the Common App. Some applications are actually simpler to do multiple applications. The Common App is just like what it sounds. So you do one application and it goes to many schools. So you do it once. It's tedious. Typically, if we have a student that says, I want to apply to Cleveland State and Kent State, I would tell them just to do those 2 applications direct to the institution without doing the Common App. It is much less tedious to do it that way. The new edition opens August 1st for Common App, but students don't have to wait. So I had some students last year who actually, they created their account in June, kind of looked, and some of the essay questions could change, but they kind of started to work through things. And then once August 1st came, they were able to transfer their information to the current year. Financial aid, if you have, I think this has been in place for about 4 years now, but if you had a senior before 2017, I believe, they would apply for financial aid in January. Now, financial aid applications start in the fall of your senior year. So a year from now, you would be, your student would be applying to colleges, and the student would have a portion to complete on the financial aid, and so would the parent. This website's amazing. If you go visit their website, then you really can start to see they have lots of information to plan ahead, answers lots of questions that you might have. It's not the dreaded application it once was because everything's so automated. And you actually use your tax information from 2 years prior rather than how it used to be. So we can use Naviance to search for scholarships as well. Keep in mind, most money for your student will come from financial aid. Back for a minute here, make sure here that you go to the .gov website. Sometimes if you go to a .com, they'll actually want to charge you money, file the financial aid form. So don't do that. Make sure you're on a Gov website here. So we can go back to our Naviance student here. So I can go, home always. Oh no, I want to extend my session. See if it lets me here. Oh, geez. All right. I have to log back in. So let me get back in here. So I can search for scholarships here by going to colleges, scholarships and money. And there's lots of things you can do here. There's a scholarship list that Mrs. Koblenz updates. Um, here's some things like, what are you thankful for scholarship? The no essay scholarship. So there are some things here that have deadlines coming up. And they'll continue to update throughout the year. If you want to know more about something, then you can simply click on it. Lots of links here. So what are you thankful for scholarship? Talks about who organizes it, how to enter. One sentence, what are you thankful for? You can click on it. Okay, so I wouldn't necessarily tell your student they have to do everything on this list, but perhaps you give them, once they're done, give them, I want you to apply for one a week or something like that. So again, I can go back up here to colleges, scholarships and money, and you can also do a national scholarship search. So here, what you're going to do is you can answer some questions about what kind of student you are and maybe what your ethnicity is, if you have. So let's see, update my scholarships and filters. So here I can talk about me, answer some questions. There are scholarships that are based on heritage. There are scholarships that might be based on disability. There are things, for example, you might find some based on that you're a first year student, religious affiliation. So you can fill these out. And then when you're done, find matching scholarships. And some of these might be repeats, but again, you can click on them and see what they're about. Okay, so just a quick preview of that. You can also register for FastWeb. During senior year, there are lots of local scholarships students can apply for. It could be through the PTA, the Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary, and those are available in guidance during January, February of your senior year. Things to look ahead to. If your student is looking to play sports in college, D1 or D2, they do need to register at the NCAA during junior year. So that's something, hopefully, if you're in that boat that a coach has talked to you about, or you could reach out to your counselor and have that conversation with them and make sure you're taking all the right courses to be on NCAA eligible. So some things, one thing to keep in mind is all Ohio colleges must accept and issue credit for a 3 on an AP test. So that's why some colleges and some state schools are preference of students. If you are going to Case Western, for example, they are very tough to get AP credit from. But so taking the AP test does some things for you. It prepares you for college. It gives you a higher level of education. It looks good to colleges. And if you get a 3 on the AP test, Ohio publicly funded colleges must take it. So, Dayton wouldn't have to, but they do on some. University of Cincinnati would have to take it. So that's also an advantage to taking AP classes. So right now, narrow down some majors, do some online research, just a timeline, right? So you don't have to know what you're doing and exactly what you're doing. Register for an ACT or SAT test, except for that March 9th test. You do not have to register for that. You can plan your college visits. And then August, September is really when you push hard on the applications. We do a meeting like this with more specific information for parents of seniors in September. We meet with all seniors individually and in groups during their senior year as well. So your student will get more support on this. So again, looking for questions. Let's see. I am going to stop sharing here and see if I have any questions submitted. I do. Do we know when the ACT will be offered at SHS? I have a calendar. I'll find that. I have it right here beside me, I believe. So you can always find that out by when you go to register for an ACT, you will type in your zip code and it'll bring up all the closest places that test. So according to my chart, I don't think this is accurate because it says just all the ACTs. So I'm not sure about that, but I have your email here and I can reply back to you and let you know that for sure. But like I said, you can, when you go in to register for the ACT, you will search by zip code and it'll tell you all the places. What should you do if your students, if the Naviance login doesn't work, they should email their teachers, or I'm sorry, their counselor. So they should email their school counselor and see what the problem is. We had some issues with students having to reset passwords, and they're not the best at that, combined with, I just think, a little bit of error in the Naviance for some students. So if the login's not working, email your counselor and they can either reset it for you or sit down with your student to help them through it. Can parents also create an account on the Naviance website? You could, but it's probably better just to log in with your student so that all of the data is in the same place. So we did used to have parents have their own account, but it created a lot of issues. But if that's something you really want, like I said, you can email the counselor, but we usually just have the parents log in with the student to work together. Should juniors start applying for scholarships? So I kind of went over that just now. It looks like you asked the question at 7:11. So you again can start applying for scholarships. You can do those scholarship searches and see what you can apply to as a as an 11th grader. It could be a full-time job. So maybe you make a goal to apply for one scholarship a week. It's a lot of work and you might not get a lot back. Every time, and I have another question here is, every time I want to take the ACT, do I have to pay $55? So you do, unless you meet the requirements for free and reduced lunch, then you could you could get a fee waiver and you would need to talk to your counselor about that. But yeah, it does cost money every single time. So again, we have students who take the ACT 5 times. I would say 2 or 3 is probably more realistic, depending on how much prep you're going to do in between classes. So I said I just wanted to share that QR code again and see if anybody had any other questions. And I don't see any other ones. So from here, if you have more questions, you or your student could reach out to your school counselor and they would gladly set up a meeting. Parents, if parents want to be in meetings, they do have to be virtual for now. But many of us are meeting with our students in person if the student wants to meet in the person and the parent wants to be at home, or they can both be at home. So I think that covers everything. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a great night. Thanks so much. Goodbye.